Okay, it's 12:04. We'll call the meeting to order. Michelle Lefebvre on Hawaii Island Exemption Committee Chair.
Winona Thone, member, Exemptions Committee.
Makala Kalmwan, a member of the public.
Tom Eisen, ERP staff. Well, separate from the ERP staff that's also listening in on this conversation. That's why you see kind of two panels.
Oh, right.
Great.
ERP
Okay.
staff and secret ERP staff.
Yeah, they're doing the hosting operation.
All right. Well, thank you for coming today. We have one exemption list that we are going to continue discussing. So, Maka'ala, for your benefit, since you weren't at our last meeting, we made it partway through the list. The pages are not numbered, but almost halfway through the list. It's pretty lengthy. So I think we can pick up where we left off, but I guess as an overview, let me see, I'll pull up the notes so I have it handy. In some cases, well, there was some typo. Definitely want to add page numbers to the list. A couple things came up where they added size restrictions, whether capacity or acreage for improvements. We sort of wanted to talk to them about that, just what their thinking was to limit size. Again, that was the modification. So the action was already in the list. The modification was to change the size. So we have that flagged in a number of places. A couple of things that we thought could be under part 2, particularly under the clearing and grubbing, one that we discussed last time. I think where we left off was we were still in part 1. We were under type 3. So maybe, I don't know how many pages in, 5th page on the back-to-back printout. So type 3, part 1, type 3, number 10. So we were the one that starts construction or replacement of minor structures accessory to the existing facilities up to 3,500 square feet.
And this is still the Hawaiian Homelands list.
This is all DHHL.
So just as a general query, because I wasn't at the last meeting, I'm not going to butt in, but I am going to ask. It was unusual for me to see all of the administrative duties included. The literally the paperwork and the desk work and that kind of stuff. I had never seen that before. Is that something they had on their old list, or is this a newfound concept?
You know, that's a good question. Do we have their old list, or is this just an update of their old list?
Well, this one was the red line strikeout. So I think a lot of it was the same, but they did, oh, that's really glary, but they did add this whole section at the beginning, kind of acknowledging and reiterating the de minimis or routine activity section. So that was new.
There's just a whole lot of stuff there that we don't ordinarily see in an exemptions list at all. I mean, moving paper around is not a problem environmentally generally, unless they make it too much of it.
Yeah, and I think that goes to, you know, what the pig report was about, right? In terms of, should we really just be excluding administrative stuff from 343 altogether? Does it continue to need an exemption? And that's a larger conversation, right? There's kind of two schools of thought in terms of everything government does is in the law, right? Under the use of state or county funds or state or county lands trigger. But you know, for those of us that we continue to go through this process, right? Yeah, we're pretty comfortable saying, okay, you buying paper clips doesn't fall, you know, under this. And so maybe that's something we can continue to tailor over the years or even do it. I think we spoke last time about doing it through additional exemptions guidance, since, you know, maybe doing an actual exclusion in 343 might be kind of controversial. It's going to require legislative fix. Just having something written, a written policy where agencies can point to, because if not, you do get a list like this where it's kind of over inclusive, right? Where I don't want to say it's overboard. I can see why they included this stuff, right? Where there isn't clarity on whether or not these administrative functions go in, especially when both the rules and the statute have, you know, a type of exemption for specifically for administrative matters. So
I was looking for consistency.
yeah,
So if
yeah.
we're going to require it, we're going to require it. If we're not, we're not. And
No.
I've never seen this before.
I don't think it's about us requiring it, right? Agencies under the law can make their lists how they want to make it. They don't need to have the same things as other agencies. So it's for us. I mean, as long as it's not wrong, I think it's totally up to DHHL if they want to include it, right? It's not for us to say this is wrong or right. It's just as you know, you guys put too much stuff, right? It's totally up to them. And as we know from other agencies, it's helpful, not maybe just from the staff who are making the list, but like the field people, right, who aren't as involved in those conversations, just so that there's no question. I think it's instructive.
Okay, that's fine. It looked like busy work.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
And just to be clear, they did have it down as type 1 de minimis stuff as opposed to the type 2.
Yeah.
These administrative actions.
Well, that was appropriate, but it's just, you know.
Right. Whether
I don't know. I never saw it before. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you in terms of agencies really shouldn't have to put that stuff, right? Like where we know we're like, okay, we wouldn't require that, but I think maybe for them it might just be a good exercise, and that might be the reason why. And we can ask them, right? This is our first view, so we haven't yet had our meeting with the agency. So Makala, that's a good question. I think if you want to attend the next one where we have DHHL staff, to ask them, yeah, like, hey, do you guys really want to put this in there? You know, we're pretty comfortable with you taking it out if you want, but if they say they want to keep,
make their life easier. Maybe they don't know that it could the job could be easier. Maybe they don't know this is a bit overkill.
Right.
Or like you said, Onana, maybe it's not overkill for their agency. Maybe it's actually really useful for their, you know, so it'd just be good to hear from them. Oh no, having it like this, because the changes in red are the only changes between, you know, 2021 and now, when we concurred. So, you know, if they're finding, you know, having that level of detail, and in fact, they're adding more detail, you know, so, in terms of capacity and size. So,
yeah, I agree. I think it's good. I think we should maybe just pose the question to them and hear from them why they put it in, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, we had left off on type 1, part 1, type 3, number 10, construction or replacement of minor structures, accessory to existing facilities up to 3,500. And we had that note about whether the 3,500 applied to the accessory building or whether it was the main facility. So we had flagged that as a question. And then under 10J, we were talking about, you know, asking for clarification between what's the difference between groundwater and a utility tank. I think they had referred to both groundwater and utility tanks in J. So we had that flag, and that's where we had sort of stopped it last week. So I guess we can pick up from there.
Okay.
You know, under that same number had installation of above ground fuel tanks, not to exceed 2,000 gallon capacity. Again, this is, you know, type 1 action. I'm not sure if we want fuel tank.
It seems like a big tank. You know, the propane tank that I have at my house is a bit of a monster, and it's 50 gallons.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You know, I'm just 2,000 gallons is the size of a tank that we have here behind our Princeville fire station, which serves fire department ambulance, police. It's a big tank. It's up on a, iron stand, and, if it hoolies over or if it springs a leak, that's a lot of fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of these, what we were kind of leaning towards, and maybe this O is a nice one too, that, okay, we might be okay with it as an exemption, but more as a part two.
Mhm.
And then even on this one, I mean, should we, up in K for the water catchment tanks, they have a spill containment shall be provided when appropriate language, probably something that's also appropriate for fuel or propane or anything, right?
Or more appropriate. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, water's water, fuel is fuel.
Right.
The other thing is, this is an opportunity for agencies to say, what would happen if, something that hasn't happened yet, that they're not really prepared for procedurally. This is the document that makes them say, what if? And given the sensitivity of fuel tanks, I think we should all be nigh unto paranoid, whether they're on top of the ground or under the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have to go through, all its own separate permitting, but I think having it as an exemption, a part one exemption, I think doesn't seem consistent with.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and if it has to go through other permitting and it has an exemption, that doesn't bode well for the other permitting status, for the other, in the other permit application, I could say, well, it's exempted, da 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 da. So, that could set up a rolling ball of non-addressing.
Yeah, or they're gonna have to document it anyways through that process. So why not just get the exemption documented, since that's the first step anyway?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I think that's appropriate for all. P, I just don't know enough about, aerators to increase dissolved oxygen, if that is appropriate for part one or part two. I mean, it seems like a good thing, so I'll have a strong feeling.
It's
Makes me
the
think of fish tank.
Yeah.
It's the placement part. I mean, is it an existing aerator? They're moving it, or
I mean, this is part two. It's construction and installation of new stuff, right? Or
I think we're still in part one.
For type 3.
Type 3, yes. Yeah, under construction.
It's construction and installation of new stuff. So
yeah.
So I think P's probably okay.
Mm-hmm.
Expansion. Yeah, I'm okay with Q. See, R should really be a part two, probably.
Yeah. Well, they're saying these would be small accessory buildings to a larger existing facility. Mm-hmm.
Construction single. No, it doesn't say it's accessory, right? It's just a new building.
Oh, right. Just, I mean, under the number 10, number 10 is construction or placement of minor structures accessory to existing facilities. So this is under that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I still think it's kind of a part two, though, for our construction on state lands of roadways and walkways, no greater than 3,500 square feet. I mean, I think T even is a part two almost. I mean,
I got a typo there with T and U. They should be. T should all, you know what I mean? It looks like there's just a hard break after walk.
There we go. Okay, with distances less than 1,000 yards. Oh yeah, and then U is that one. Okay, construction, modification of storage tank, reservoir. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards U, T and U being part twos. I mean, even as just a way for us to track, what types of exemptions departments are making. Because I mean, we can't even track the types if it's a part one, which are really meant to be totally de minimis. I don't know if folks have hard feelings on that.
I don't.
I think especially with the water quality aspect of T and U, that's a good one to, to be publishing for public review. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we can move on to type 4, the minor alteration in the conditions of land, water, or veg. The additions are 12 through 17.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not an issue.
I mean, number 12 is kind of the same as number 1 in that same section, except for, I mean, they might want to combine those so they're not redundant.
Yeah, that's a good idea. No, one protection measure that Fish and Wildlife Service always stipulates is for in regard to number 15, except for tree tobacco, right? You're not supposed to cut tree tobacco without inspecting it once it's over certain feet in height, because it can serve as a host for the blackburn sphinx moth, which is an endangered.
Or it has a different height limit, essentially, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like it's totally fine to cut like 3 feet and below, but then once it gets above a certain height, so I'm not sure if that's worth working into here or noting. Maybe just.
Yeah, I've seen that in projects we've worked on as well. Mm-hmm. So I think it might be worth mentioning, because it's not, I think the 15 feet they're getting for the bats, right? For OPEPA. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's worth raising to them just for the
Although I do think 15 feet is not quite enough.
Is not quite enough.
Yeah, well, it's 15 feet and it's during specific seasons, right?
Yeah, I think the season helps that. You have to have the two
together. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, we can revisit that one with the right stipulations. I can have those handy when we talk to DHHL.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, 16 just seems so minor, right? Clearing or grubbing less than 100 cubic feet.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with the stuff they have under here. I mean, 13B is a little, I mean, typically the granting of the easement is not the issue, right? It's just, so if they're actually digging the trench and stuff, that's going to trigger something. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm okay with that.
Okay. Moving on to type 5, the basic data collection. We're including construction of test wells. But excluding the using them as a water source.
Unless they do the appropriate, okay.
And the 8-inch casing that's a good control size.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't see anything in their additions that give me pause.
Yeah, I didn't either.
And then anything under type 6, and then under type 7, they sort of change the format. I think I would just probably have them make it consistent. If they're going to do exemption type 7, and they can do exemption type 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, just to make it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with everything they have under type 6 and their caveats.
Just seems that number 5 isn't a zoning variance. The demolition work.
Number 5 under 7, you mean?
Yes. Yeah. Under this. Right? I mean, are we?
Yeah, that seems like it might be in the wrong place.
Right. Okay. Moving on to type 8, continuing admin activities. And this is sort of adding all that, I think maybe, Makaala, what you were pointing out before, a lot of paperwork related categories.
Yeah, it just, I mean, if they have the staff, they have the time, that's fine, but it's it's unnecessary.
I wonder if it's come out.
I just don't want others, and I mean, I heard what Onana said, that every agency has the right to do their own thing. Of course they do. But I don't want other agencies to say, wow, is that what we have to do? And then be resistant.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's part of our conversation with them when they consult us is, hey, do we need to list everything? And we would give guidance that no, you don't. Right, in those cases.
Well, this is a good agency to say that to.
Yeah. 4 and 5 seem a little redundant of the new one that they added under part 413, type 413, in terms of land subdivision and consolidation. So I guess that one's just for a housing development, but I'm okay with them keeping it. It's just, again, it looks like they added some new stuff which might capture some of what's under type 8, numbers 4 and 5.
So sorry, so you're saying 4 and 5 under 8 are the same as?
Well, they might not fully the same, because this one, I mean, they have it under continuing administrative activities, but then they added under type 4, number 13, land subdivision and consolidation for housing development, acquisition, subdivision, and or consolidation of minor amounts of land less than 1 acre.
I see. It's
So,
redundant.
I mean, it's a little redundant. Again, I mean, it's fine. Just not sure if, they're adding new stuff, but if they want to take off some of the old stuff, or just make sure they're not making this list longer than it needs to be.
So what they added under, 413 is the same as what they have. It's the land division and consolidation.
It's not the same, but it's similar. Is my comment, and I guess we can ask them what's
the same as 413 is similar to. I just missed the other place.
8, number 4 and 5. I
8,
guess
4.
I guess our question, I guess, could it be like, are they redundant, or what do they consider the difference to be?
Yeah.
Which type are we on now?
I think we're still on type 8. Yeah, so sorry. But yeah, Michelle, maybe we can just ask them the question if they can explain to us what's the difference between the new type 4, number 13A and type 8, 4, and 5. Let's
Yep.
just have them explain that to us.
Understood.
Yeah, so I think we're still under type 8 Maka'ala. I was looking at the new stuff now, 10, starting from 10.
I got lost.
Yeah, that's okay. We're yeah, just at 8, the new additions are all administrative, contract related. Many are contract related or other
Yeah.
kinds of agreements.
That's why I said what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
And it sort of carries over to 9 as well. Transferring authority or title.
Yeah, that one really got me. Transferring title over public lands between EHHL and public agencies through governor's executive orders. Why in the world does that need an exemption?
yeah, I mean, it probably doesn't, but I think if they want to just, yeah, because I mean, again, if they're taking the broad stance that everything they do is subject to 343, then I can see
Yeah.
why they're doing, just making that clear. So yeah, I'm okay
Well,
with
and
that.
I will tell you that I think there is something to be said for governor's executive orders transferring title of land that they want to get rid of a problem. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to have somebody taking a look at that piece of property and saying, okay, these are the constraints that may come with that transfer. These are the conveyance is not just, a simple matter. We've had that happen to us in Honolulu twice.
Mhm.
The governor's getting rid of stuff they don't want.
Sure. Yeah, and I can see, I mean, typically just the conveyance itself, right? If you're not doing anything, to me, probably shouldn't trigger 343. But yeah, what's the subsequent development? But I mean, I can also see a case where just a transfer to a new agency could result in something.
Well, not just the subsequent development.
Mhm.
Does the county have a right to say no? The governor EOs a building to the county. Can the county say no? And the nexus I'm making is, might there be something in an environmental review that would help the county know whether this was a good thing or not? I don't know. Or I don't know. So I'm arguing both sides of this. Why would we need an exemption? And would an exemption spelled out maybe support the receiver's analysis of what they're actually getting and not a pig in a poke?
No, it's a good point. I mean, I think it could. This would be under the ones they have listed right now under part 1. I don't think an exemption under part 1 would be particularly helpful because there'd be no analysis with it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my point. If they're going to put something in there, put some hooks to it. Otherwise, why is it there?
Yeah.
And they have others under, when we get to part 2, I just skipped ahead to check, and under exemption type 9 and under part 2, they have other kind of acquisitions.
Okay,
for part 2, but not
back
these.
to, before we move on, can we back to part 9? I think I'm generally okay with 1 under the EO staying on part 1. Number 2, my comment is, again, they have yet another exemption for subdivision and consolidation.
Yeah.
And this one has a caveat without change in existing land use. So I think maybe we just need some clarity on what's the difference between all of these under the different types. Because typically we'll see like a subdivision exemption just under one of the types.
Yeah.
Some of this seem to be driven by Lahaina too.
Possibly, yeah. Disposal of land for development of housing projects. I mean, I guess I want to know what they mean. Like, are they conveying state land by disposal? And
I just throw it away.
yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like this needs to be a part 2, if anything, but can we ask them about this one? Because I don't know. I guess I just want to know a little bit more about what they're thinking.
Mhm.
So exemption type 9, number 4, what does disposal mean?
Yeah,
what
yeah,
kind of circumstances are you thinking about here?
Mhm.
right.
And
then-
then number 5, that's another one that's back to my original point.
Mhm.
I mean, that's something they do probably every single day, right? Right of entry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
fine under a part 1.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we can ask them what kind of stuff they're doing. Leasing of private land or existing structure.
I mean, to a certain extent, some of the stuff does give you a nice paper trail. You know, if they have to at least, consider
Yeah.
it. But I, I don't know. I don't know. They're just moving paper is all they're doing. They're not changing the earth.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know. 7 might be a part 2 as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm not trying to build them a part 2 list. I'm really not. It's just
Yeah.
But they added a lot to their type 9 under part 2, so it's not a big, it's not a
Yeah.
big thing, I think, to move it from part 1 to part 2. I think that, and there's another subdivision one, which is part 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just. I mean, I think I know some of what DHHL is working on and up to in a positive way. You know, they know they need to build a whole lot of housing, and they know that they're going to be doing a lot of this stuff. And I can think if I was in their chair that I might be wanting to be sure that I had all my T's crossed and I's dotted so that it was a smooth path. Because I know we all know they need to be doing that, and they're getting ready. They've got some infrastructure in, and all that's happening, right? So I think they're foreseeing upcoming tasks and just wanting to cover their bases.
Yeah. What
But
about
I don't
number-
see how does an appraisal have any, I don't understand.
No, that's why I think appraisal's fine. Again, because they're gonna have to pay for an appraisal, so they're using state funds. I think that 13 can stay in a part 1. Part 2, though, I kind of wonder if there should be a difference between, like, I don't think they should have to do a part 2 exemption every single time they're doing, leases to residential homesteaders.
No, I don't either.
But if they're leasing for commercial purposes, maybe that's a
Well,
part
but they
2.
did, and so what they said, if the use doesn't change. So if the use doesn't change, oh, that's fine. Then we don't have to review it as a new impact.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we want to see the commercial go away.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the fact is, in my world, there's a way for me to chime in on all this stuff anyway, even if it's in their exemption list, right? I mean, I would still be able to say, have you really looked at this? Because this might have some implications you haven't considered. Whether or not you've got it in part 1 or part 2 or whatever, I still have a bite at the apple.
Probably at some point, but maybe not at the 343 side, right? That's the difference between the part 1 and part 2. Because if it's a part 1 exemption, you never see it. You never know they made an exemption.
Right.
That's the distinction we make with the part 2 is that they submit a list to ERP and that gets published. And then at least, you as the public kind of see what they're doing on a monthly basis. But yeah. Okay. I think are we okay on type 9?
Yeah.
Number 15 is fascinating.
So this type 10, wait, sorry, are you, which one are you?
914, I don't have a problem with that.
Oh, okay, 914.
915, I don't have any problem with acquisition, except that where other appropriate technical studies have already been completed or when the current usage will not change significantly. It's just interesting lingo.
Yeah.
Interesting lingo. I mean, somebody's got time on their hands, I think.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that, this is a comment we had at the last meeting, is where they are putting some restrictions on themselves that you wouldn't otherwise see, because just the acquisition of land itself we've seen is generally appropriate for an exemption, right? You're
Right.
acquiring land, you're not redeveloping or doing anything. Now, if you're gonna change the use, then okay, but the acquisition itself, you typically would not, you know, you wouldn't even do an exemption determination for that.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Mm.
So it's, and given that next paragraph, note to ERP staff, they generally zone their own land. It is a whole different conversation. DHHL, for a whole lot of reasons,
Okay,
isn't.
so are we going to exemption 10 now? Sorry, I think we gotta
Mhm.
have,
Oh,
okay.
sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I thought we were still on 15, but no, okay. Yeah, this is a good one. Okay. Non-use to encodes that are the urban. Therefore, we use our land use designations and codes. We have codes that are similar to county classification of housing. Is this classification valid instead of the previous verbiage? So that is a very good question, and I don't
Well,
because
what it does, Onana, for me,
mhm,
is how much are they separate and apart from this process or any
yeah,
other process? And we face this every day. They don't
mhm,
want to follow local ordinances, but they want the cops to come when they dial 911. And so
mhm,
we have this tension often here, um, in a friendly way, but in a policy way, right? So this
right.
is another example of that. We're going to do all of this, but we zone our own stuff. We don't have, I
Mhm.
mean, it's like, what are you, panda or bear? It's kind of like, wait a minute, huh? Um,
Yeah, I mean,
I leave it to you to sort out the lingo there because it just talks in circles as far as I'm concerned.
no, I mean, I think it makes sense if DHHL lands are not subject to county zoning, then that makes sense because they wouldn't have a zoning designation anyways, right? And um so I guess new construction of DHHL homestead development. So this is just for homestead development, period. So what they did was they took the affordable housing exemption that we have in the rules as a framework and propose their own framework for their housing development generally. That's what they're doing. So, and I guess Tom, you might know better, but I think I have seen maybe a couple of DHHL EAs, EISs out there for larger developments, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to go do some research. Do they
Yeah.
typically do like an EIS when they're proposing a big, homestead development?
There certainly have been EAs and EISs for their projects. It's not like they categorically exclude or exempt
Themselves.
anything.
Yeah.
Of course, we only know what gets submitted to us, so we don't know what doesn't come to us.
Mhm.
But they do submit things fairly regularly. In fact, there's a project in the upcoming March 8th for a project on Maui. It's a big residential development. It's an EA.
Yeah.
In fact, the EA is so big, it probably should be an EIS, but it's an EA.
Right. Thank you. No, that's helpful to know. I figure you see a lot more of these things than most of us do. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of think we need to have a bigger conversation with DHHL on this because it's not just for affordable housing projects. So it doesn't quite track our exemption. But to me, this almost reads like they are trying through their exemption list to exempt all DHHL housing projects. And if folks disagree with my read of it, please let me know. That might actually be something that I don't know that we can do in an exemption list. They might need an actual legislative exemption through 343 for that.
Mhm.
I don't know. What are folks feeling on this?
I mean, I hadn't picked up on the fact that they had used the affordable housing, but we're now applying it to all DHL until you pointed it out to all homes on DHHL. So yeah, now that you've noted that, it does seem like it could be big, particularly under a part one exemption.
Yeah, I gotta think on that. I mean, I think, well, I think we need to have a larger conversation with the DHHL reps that are meeting on that. I'm not willing, and Makala dropped off, maybe she had to go, but
Yeah.
I don't think we can just stamp that because that exemption had a lot of, the affordable housing exemption had a lot of back and forth with the public, right? Or, you know, it's specifically for affordable housing projects. And I mean, I think whatever DHHL can do to get more housing, to get folks off the wait list is amazing. I think we want to help that effort.
Right.
And again, it's not us approving this, but I think we should discuss further
Mhm.
whether or not that's appropriate. And I mean, I certainly think that is not a part one exemption.
Right.
I mean, maybe we put, you know, at minimum it needs to go to part two.
Mhm.
But I think we got to talk to them a little bit more on this one,
Mhm.
since it's
That
not.
it, that it really broadens the application
Yeah.
of that category, right, in the rules from
Yeah.
affordable housing, from new construction of affordable housing to
Yeah.
all new homestead development.
And again, I think, you know, giving credence to DHHL and what their purpose is as an agency, you know, to me, I think, you know, I'm kind of okay with it, but I also just want to make sure that we're having the right conversations because again,
Yeah.
to the extent anything can be done to get, you know, that wait list down and get Native Hawaiians, you know, onto homestead plans, that's fantastic.
Right.
But maybe it requires more of an, you know, something from the legislature to say that rather than
And
kind of sneak in through an exemption list. That's the part of the process that I think needs to be a little bit more transparent. And I don't know that we even have the authority to do that.
right.
It's not
Right.
us, like we're just concurring it, but does DHHL have that authority? I kind of yeah.
Yep.
I gotta think on that one a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We should have a larger conversation with them. And I'd actually be interested to know from DHHL what conversations, if any, they've had with the legislature to propose that sort of an exemption themselves directly into 343. I think that would be probably the more appropriate place to do it.
Right.
Yeah. How many more pages do we have? We only have 13 more minutes.
Yeah, we do. Now we better jump ahead. So now we are moving to part two. Okay, so we're adding exterior. That doesn't seem to be an issue. Thought we had something similar to number 2 under part 1, the rehab or restoration of structures and features at historic and archaeological sites. Thought I remember seeing that under the, oh yeah, same with the exterior low blue spectrum security, that is identical
Their part 1.
in part 1.
Okay, so I think I gotta.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe I wonder if they just did they just repeat the same stuff?
Right.
Yeah, so I think for that one, I'm gonna ask them like, do you mean this is part 1 or part 2?
Yeah, and I think it was the same for number 2. So we'll check with both. 2. Okay. Emergency repairs, mitigation. Emergency mitigation.
I think that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Mitigation.
So then type 2 is entirely new. Here, like type 2, number 3 is the same as type 1, number 7. So the emergency repairs construction.
Type
I
2.
guess are they applying it to?
Wait, which one? Sorry, type 2.
Sorry. Type 2, number 3
Mhm.
is the same as type 1, number 7, emergency repairs.
So reconstruction operation, repairs, maintenance, system structures. Yeah, but type 1 was operations, repairs, and maintenance, and then this one is replacement or reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
So you
mean,
think it needs to be in both?
I think it can be.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
You know, I feel like Maka'ala might have an issue at number 5.
The
But
sanitary sewer line replacement.
no larger than the next largest nominal diameter size. I mean, I guess that's actually okay.
Mm-hmm.
Generally same alignment due to the need to increase to a minimum diameter standard for maintenance purposes or to accommodate wet weather peak loads. Upsize to that. Okay, yeah, I think that's fine
Yeah.
with that last sentence. Okay.
Mm-hmm. You seem like they really, limited it to the replacement or reconstruction. Okay. All right. And moving on to type 3, construction and location of single new.
I wonder why they took out driveways, carports, and walkway. Number 17, no, sorry, type 2, number 17.
I don't understand because it looks like it was all added. So they're striking out. I don't know if that was an internal edit or.
Yeah.
All right, so then type 3, this is construction of new individual action. It's funny to have 3, 1F, an individual action on up to 4 dwelling units, where in part 1, type 10, we had an exemption for all of new homestead development.
Yeah.
A specific, exemption for a 4 dwelling unit. Again, I guess just reinforcing the need to discuss the intent of 10. And
yeah,
it seems like you wouldn't need F then if all homestead development is exempt under.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Same for G. I mean, guess this is just rehab of existing, which, which I guess I'm okay with G, but 4 is a little weird, needs further discussion.
4, acquisition.
Sorry, 4F.
Yeah.
Is this
1F.
1F? Yeah.
Yeah.
Discussion. Okay.
I mean, the fact that you would have all these rehab things as part two, but full construction as a part one.
Yeah.
Seems inconsistent.
I mean, is there 20% reasonable? They're using that just, I mean, increase of 20%. In some instances, it's not a lot, but in some instances it could be, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, I guess let's just ask them what kind of projects they're thinking of for all of these.
Yeah. Ooh, we still have a bit to go. I think we're probably gonna have to
Yeah.
carry it over. Sorry, to one more, unless you think we should just. I mean, I think it's helpful to talk through it together because you see things that you don't always see on your own. I hate to put them off one more month though.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can go through it on our own for the remainder
Yeah.
and include it in those questions as we go through it with them at the next meeting. Because I agree. I don't think we should put them off for another meeting.
Right. 17 was one that jumped out in the same type 3 for me. Construct new shoreline protection systems that are to be short-term or mid-term solutions.
Yeah, I think we got to talk to them about that because I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to know what types of analyses they do for that at all. Because we know these types of things have been very controversial in the North Shore and with respect to how, OCCL, the positions they're taking. So, I mean, it might be interesting to know from DHHL, what conversations, if any, they've had with DLNR.
So they're proposing that if they construct them, that they would be exempted.
Yeah,
Well,
it'd be a part 2 exemption.
Theory, that would trigger a CDUA if they're doing this. And it might be, OCCL might feel very hamstrung if they have to, because normally they would never exempt something like that. And if they would have to accept an exemption from another agency, they probably would feel that's not kosher.
Yeah, I think that's why I was like, I guess I want to know from DLNR, from DHHL, I guess how much shoreline property do they own? I don't know. I just don't have enough information on that. And in what situations are they thinking about this? And I'd want to know if they've already, vetted this potential exemption with DLNR OCCL before we opine on it. Because agreed, I think that, we've seen that. I know DLNR is trying to take a very, they're trying to consistent approach with similar properties, right? And it's been a real problem in some areas. So I think DHHL needs to talk with DLNR if they have it on that.
Right.
Good point.
Okay, well, we probably should adjourn. So
okay, well, I was gonna say, since it's just us on the minutes, they looked fine except on the very last sentence on page 3. What would be page 3? My name's spelled wrong, so I would just say that so we don't
okay.
But I don't know if I move to approve, but there's just the two of us. But other than that, good job keeping the minutes.
Okay.
And we'll continue. I think, Michelle, if we can, because we don't want to keep pushing them off. Let's go through this on our own and just be prepared to go through the full list. And I know you're making notes of everything to date that we had questions on, right? And I don't know if you want to send that to them ahead of time before.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I would like to come to a meeting with some idea of, know, what to be prepared to talk about. So I'll write something up and I'll CC you.
But let them know where we left off and that we'll probably have additional questions, at the next meeting with them.
Right. Perfect. Okay. Well, all right then.
And then just for my clarity, since I'm kind of new to this, you contact them directly. So I don't need to intervene in that discussion of bringing them to the table here.
That's correct. That's how seen it.
Yeah, that's.
Work. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I
Great
could
way.
call them, I can email them. I think it's up to our discretion how we
Yeah, okay.
initiate that discussion. If you want,
Yeah.
I can CC you, but if
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe just so I know about it,
Okay.
but I just,
Okay.
if
Yeah.
that process was dependent on me to do something, I'd for sure want to know that, but it's clear
Yeah.
that it doesn't.
Well,
get-
I think
get done.
the only part we'd ask for you maybe is to once the agenda set, you send them the agenda so they have
Oh.
it.
okay, that's a good point.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So yeah, if Michelle, I would suggest keeping Tom on.
Yeah, perfect. I will do. All right. Thank you so much. All right, meeting
All right.
adjourned at 1. Thank you.
Okay, gonna log off and log back in.
Okay.
Thanks.
Another-
Bye.
Okay.